Hi, today I'm going to walk you through how I'd go about improving a UI design. The app we'll be working on today is called PayUp. I reached out to the founder and asked if I could do a critique and attempt to improve the UI design, and thankfully he said yes. To provide some context, PayUp is a fintech app that allows you to send money from Ghana to countries outside, like the UK. It also has features that allows you to buy things like gift cards and maybe subscriptions. So today I'm gonna challenge myself to take a UI from good to great and hopefully under an hour. Let's get into it. Here's the UI we'll be working with today. Before getting into any UI designs, it's always a good idea to look at what you have and map out what the main goal of the page is and what things you might need to do or consider to improve it. I'll just look through these two screens that we have, one being the empty state and one being like a state where it's actually populated with information. I feel the card at the top on both of these pages is way too big. Normally, companies like to put their logos on certain parts of the UI. When you have a splash screen that shows your logo when you open the app and you have an app icon that has your logo there, I don't know if it's a good idea to also include that logo as a visual cue again on a space that you could use for other things in your app. Again, we have a limited amount of space when we're working on mobile devices. So things like good evening, um, yeah, the stuff like that might not really be as valuable because I know my name and I know it's evening. It doesn't really add much to the app. So, excuse my handwriting. I'm not there. I don't have the nicest handwriting. Yeah, we could make this look a lot more interesting, and it could also be a way for us to prompt people to make their first transaction since there is no information. This is something that you find on apps like Airbnb, where on empty states they show you something like you haven't booked a trip, so then there's a call to action here that says book a trip, and then that's how you start to fill out that page. So yeah, that's one thing that I might say we consider. Another thing, this is an app for both um, iOS and Android. So these Bitmoji characters might not actually work. And yeah, when I spoke about this with the developer, apparently these are randomly generated. It's not actually what is in your iPhone. It might show a different person's Bitmoji for you. We might want to reconsider how we show people's profile avatars. Next thing is the buttons at the bottom. There's no clear hierarchy between the two. Nav section looks good. It feels basic, but looks okay. Also, the notification illustration thing at the top here is actually a way to refer a friend, and that also seems not clear enough. It just looks like an icon that might stand for notification, but I also get how it seems like a way to refer friends, but I feel like that could be better placed in the app, so that's another thing to consider. Yeah, I feel like that's a good starting point. So I'll just structure all of this and have a good idea of what content has to show up on this screen and what the main goal of the screen is, so we can actually start creating some designs. Now in Figma, I started listing out the goals of the page, the content we need to show to achieve those goals, and the main call to actions. Then I moved on to gather inspiration from a site called Mobin. It's a good place to gather realistic design references for mobile apps. Then I started sketching some initial designs, the goal being to create as many different variations as possible, also keeping in mind the goals we listed in the beginning. Now I moved into creating lower fidelity mocks. Doing this allows me to structure the content and the page layout a lot better. The focus at this point should purely be on content and layout. That's why you'd see everything here in grayscale and not much thought has been given into font selections. Yeah, whilst doing this, I'm mostly thinking about what contents might be lacking, what content is too much and how best to lay out the information on the page. For example, the recent transactions on the original version didn't have a date. So it was while I was doing this that I was able to see we might want to tell them what date that transaction happened. With the flow and the content structure mapped out, I moved on to higher fidelity designs. The first thing I focused on was the nav, so I simplified it down to just four tabs and then introduced a main button that would draw attention. And when clicked on, it shows the different payment options that app provides. Then I worked on an updated version of the top cards, bringing the call to actions from the bottom into the cards and giving more priority to sending money. Because per my guess, that would be the primary action people would be taking. I moved on to the recent recipient section where the previous design only showed the Bitmoji and the person's name. To make this a lot more valuable, I introduced the service provider that was used and then the account number for that service provider. That way, when you try to make a transaction to a recent recipient, you have a lot more context. I didn't change much in relation to the recent transaction section. I only included a new text tag that would allow you see the date and the status of a transaction. Layout wise, everything mostly stayed the same. I moved on to create a bottom sheet section that opens up when you click the main action in the nav bar. I made sure to include the new tag that was in the previous version because it's a good way to show new features that have been included in the app. I structured the section in a way that more payment features could be added down the line without it becoming clumsy or confusing for the user. To add more visual interest to this section, I quickly mocked up some simple illustrations for each of the payment options. It's always a good idea to switch from Figma onto an actual device to get a sense of sizing and just know if the elements you are designing would actually work well on the end device. Finally, I moved on to the empty state for when a user signs onto the app for the first time, shifting from just telling them they have no recent transactions or recent recipients to someone prompting them to make their first transfer. To wrap up, I'll talk through some key differences between the original and the final design. The first thing I updated was the primary color from the somewhat dull blue to a lighter shade of blue. Then I moved on to the card, moving the call to actions from right above the nav into the card. So it somewhat relates to your balance. So you see your balance and then you see the options to either add money or transfer money from it. So that was just to group all that logic. Then I added a bit more information to the recent recipient section. So you have a lot more context as to what account and who you are sending money to. I didn't change much in relation to the recent transaction section, except for adding a text tag that allows you to see the date the transaction happened and the status if it's still not completed. I included some bottom sheets that open up when you click the action in the nav bar to show the various payment options you have, and then a bottom sheet for choosing or changing the currency that you see amount in. That shows up when you click the arrow by your balance. For the empty state, for when you just sign up. We moved from showing you that you have no recent activity to giving you more of a welcome to the app, and then letting you know that maybe your first three transactions are on us and you wouldn't be charged a transaction fee. This is more a business decision. And then showing the two main call to actions, one more to make your first transfer or add funds to your wallet. Yeah, that was mostly it for this redesign. Hope you liked it and see you later.